Police beat. Black woman's son into a coma, and she takes the police department to court. The sirens pierce the silence like knives. Dana Carter slammed her car door shut and sprinted across the hospital parking lot. Her hands trembled as she clutched her purse, her heart pounding like a war drum. She hadn't even changed out of her work clothes, still in her navy sweater, jeans, and sensible flats. Her phone had buzzed 3 times in quick succession. 3 words lit up the screen. "It's Jamal. Hurry." When she burst through the ER doors, the smell of antiseptic and chaos hit her hard. Nurses moved in rapid motion. An officer was posted near the entrance. Dana didn't stop to ask questions. She knew. A mother always knows. "Excuse me," she gasped to the triage nurse. "My name is Dana Carter. My son, Jamal Carter. He was brought in just now." The nurse's face tightened. That was never a good sign. "Room 3C. He's stable, for now," she added quietly. Dana didn't wait for more. She ran. She found her baby, her 17-year-old boy, hooked up to tubes, monitors beeping in a grim, robotic rhythm. One eye was swollen shut, dried blood crusted at his hairline. His face was barely recognizable beneath the bruises. Her knees buckled and she nearly collapsed at the foot of the bed. "Who did this to him?" she whispered. Behind her, someone cleared their throat. Dana turned. A white officer in uniform, Officer Brannigan, stood in the doorway with his partner, Officer Lutz. She saw it immediately. The rigid jaw, the fake concern, the too-polished report clutched in Brannigan's hand. "We regret what happened tonight," Brannigan said. "Your son matched the description of a suspect fleeing a robbery nearby." He resisted arrest. Dana rose to her feet slowly. "My son is 5'10", wears glasses, and was walking home with a backpack full of SAT prep books. What part of that screamed armed robber to you?" Lutz shifted uncomfortably. Brannigan didn't blink. "We followed protocol." "Did protocol include beating a child until he slipped into a coma?" "Ma'am, he was uncooperative." Dana stared at them, calmly, coldly. "You picked the wrong boy. 2 hours earlier, Jamal had left the library at 8:40 p.m., backpack slung over his shoulder, earbuds in, listening to Kendrick. He'd just finished a physics study session with his friend Elijah. He took the long route home, cutting through Anderson Park to clear his head. It was supposed to be a peaceful walk, but a cruiser pulled up behind him fast, lights off, no warning. 2 men jumped out and shouted for him to get down. He froze. He reached to take his earbuds out, and then the first blow came. At the hospital, Dana sat by her son's side, gently holding his hand. He didn't stir. She whispered into his ear, "I promise you, Jamal, I will make them pay." But she didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, she made a call. "Raymond, I need you." Raymond Knox was a retired investigative journalist who'd once exposed police misconduct in East Cleveland. He owed Dana his career. She had fed him cases back when she was still in the courtroom, still full of fire. He'd gone quiet in recent years, cancer, loss, age, but when Dana called, he answered. "What happened?" "2 cops put my boy in a coma." There was a long pause. "Tell me everything," Raymond said. The next day, the news ran a vague headline, "Teen injured during police altercation." It included a blurred body cam still of Jamal on the ground, but the footage looked strange. Sloppy cuts, angles missing, timestamp errors. Dana didn't say a word publicly. Not yet. Instead, she sat in front of her computer at midnight, opened files she hadn't touched in years. Old case law, legal strategy notes. She dusted off the version of herself that she had buried long ago, The Dana Carter who had taken on entire systems before walking away after a judge let a guilty cop walk free because of a technicality. Now they'd come for her son, and that woman was back. 2 days later, Officer Brannigan gave a press conference outside the precinct. We acted within legal parameters. It's a tragedy, but we followed all proper steps. A woman in the back shouted, "Then release the footage." Brannigan ignored her. Meanwhile, Dana met with Elise Harmon, a bright young paralegal from the local civil liberties nonprofit. "I've been looking into Brannigan," Elise said. 4 excessive force complaints in the last 2 years, all inconclusive outcomes. "Elise," Dana said, "we're going to court, but not just for Jamal." Back at the hospital, Jamal's eyelids fluttered. A nurse noticed, wrote it in the chart, a small hope but real. That night, Dana stood in her kitchen, surrounded by silence, watching the shadows play on the wall. She whispered into the dark, "They beat the wrong boy." Then she picked up her phone and called a name she hadn't uttered in 5 years. "Judge Harlan, I need 10 minutes of your time. It's about police misconduct, and I'm going back in." Elise Harmon didn't know what she expected when Dana Carter called her into that modest kitchen in the heart of East Atlanta. Maybe a grieving mother desperate for justice. Maybe a woman breaking under pressure. But what she found was something far more dangerous. A storm in a silk blouse. Dana stood with a case file open on the table, printed reports, photographs, and highlighted body cam metadata spread out like a war map. Her hair was pulled back, her sleeves rolled. Her eyes were sharp, focused, and entirely without fear. "I've started drafting the federal complaint," Dana said without looking up. Section 1983. Excessive force, color of law violations. But that's not all. Elise blinked. "You're filing it yourself?" Dana looked up. "I'm not just filing it, I'm going to court. I'm taking them apart 1 page at a time." "You haven't practiced in years." "I haven't stopped thinking like a lawyer in years." 3 blocks away, inside the East Atlanta precinct, Sergeant Miguel Torres stepped into the break room holding 2 coffee cups. Officer Brannigan sat in the corner, nursing a swollen knuckle. "She lawyered up?" Torres asked. Brannigan nodded, jaw clenched. "Worse. She's the lawyer." Torres raised a brow. "Seriously?" "Dana Carter. Used to be a bulldog in the Fulton County Circuit. Took down a corrupt deputy mayor. Remember that?" Torres sighed. "You realize if this goes to trial, Internal Affairs is gonna rip through your file like wolves." "I handled it," Brannigan said flatly. But Torres didn't miss the flicker of doubt behind his partner's eyes, because the truth was things hadn't been handled. Not completely. And now the one woman they never wanted in a courtroom again was building a case with blood on her hands. Their blood. By midweek, the first wave of support poured in. Church members, Jamal's school counselor, neighbors, all offering witness statements. Dana interviewed each one meticulously. She recorded everything. At one point, an older woman leaned across Dana's kitchen table and placed a hand over hers. "Whatever you need, baby. We've all been waiting for someone to fight like this." Donna didn't smile, but she nodded, because it was never about just Jamal. That Friday, Dana visited the Internal Affairs Division and formally requested access to all body cam footage and incident reports under the Georgia Open Records Act. She filed it in person, delivering it into the hands of Captain Lenora Gates. Captain Gates flipped through the paperwork. "You're digging deep." "I'm not digging," Dana said coolly. "I'm unearthing the truth. You know they'll push back, delay, redact." Dana met her eyes. "Then we'll let the courts decide what the public deserves to know." As Dana turned to leave, Gates leaned in. "Watch your back, Miss Carter. You're stirring up things that were buried for a reason. Dana didn't even flinch. Good. Let them rot in the sun. Later that night, back in the hospital, Jamal's room had quieted. The machines still beeped their solemn song, but his grip was firmer around Dana's hand. Not much, but enough. She looked at her son, bruised and silent, and her voice cracked just a little when she whispered, "Don't worry, baby. I'm fighting with everything I've got." Then, suddenly, Jamal's fingers twitched. Just once. Saturday morning brought an unexpected twist. Raymond Knox called, urgency in his voice. "You need to see this. Channel 12 just aired the wrong clip." "What do you mean?" "They leaked a body cam snippet, but it wasn't from Brannigan. It was from Lutz, and it shows your son already handcuffed when the assault continued." Dana's heart skipped. "Say that again." "He was restrained, and Brannigan kept hitting him." That changed everything. Dana and Elise watched the clip together. It was grainy but damning. Jamal face down, cuffed, his face already bleeding, and Brannigan screaming, landing punch after punch. Elise covered her mouth. "He was defenseless. Jesus!" Dana's voice was ice. "Now it's no longer excessive force. It's torture, aggravated battery, and we're adding civil conspiracy." But even as Dana plotted her legal strategy, another thought brewed beneath the surface. Who leaked this? And why? She would find out. She always did. That night, Elise stayed late, sorting through precinct rosters, complaint records, and use of a force charts. She looked up from the files and asked softly, "Why did you stop, Dana, after all the good you did?" Dana didn't answer right away. She stared out the window at the empty street. "Because I believed the system couldn't change. And now?" Dana turned, her face resolute. "Now I don't care if it can. I'm going to break it open anyway." Across town, Officer Lutz stared at his own hands. He hadn't expected the footage to leak. He hadn't expected the guilt to gnaw at him like this. He picked up his burner phone and typed one line. "You want the truth? Follow the lieutenant." Then he hit send, and for the first time in weeks he exhaled. The sky over East Atlanta was dark and heavy, mirroring the weight pressing down on Dana Carter's chest. She hadn't slept in nearly 36 hours, but the fire in her blood didn't know fatigue. It only knew forward. A knock at the door pulled her from a spreadsheet of officer complaint records. Elise poked her head in, her laptop tucked under her arm. "You need to see this," she said. Dana followed her into the living room where Elise opened her screen and played the surveillance video. It was street footage, an angle Dana hadn't seen before. It captured the patrol car pulling over near a closed liquor store, Jamal stepping out, hands raised. Then Lutz motioning him to the ground. Jamal obeyed, and then Brannigan charging out. No warning, just fists. The video didn't lie. Dana whispered, "That's not reasonable suspicion. That's rage." But what shook her more wasn't Brannigan, it was the timestamp. The footage had been uploaded to a server the night of the incident, which meant someone inside the department had access, and someone had kept it buried. "I think the leak came from inside," Elise said. "There's a pattern of off-the-record data dumps around misconduct cases, anonymous, quiet, but always targeting the dirtiest cops." Dana frowned. "A whistleblower? Or someone with a score to settle?" Dana's mind went to the message, "Follow the lieutenant." It had arrived anonymously last night. She'd almost ignored it, but now it felt like the first real crack in a wall of silence. Later that day, Dana entered the East Atlanta courthouse, not as a grieving mother, but as an attorney with a mission. She filed the federal lawsuit with the clerk, her name cleanly typed at the top of the page, Dana Carter versus East Atlanta Police Department et al. She handed over the file and looked the clerk dead in the eye. "Stamp it. Click. Slam. Done." Back at the precinct, Lieutenant Reuben Keller stared at the printout that had just landed on his desk. The civil suit was now official. Dana Carter was coming for them, and he knew what that meant. He'd crossed paths with her before. Years ago, she'd nearly derailed a union protection statute with a single deposition, and now she was digging again. He paced his office, then called a number on his personal cell. "She's moving forward," he said. "You told me this would be handled." The voice on the other end replied coolly, "We didn't expect her to go public. Let's not panic. Let's plan." That night, Dana sat by Jamal's bed. His face still bore the purplish shadows of what they'd done to him. She placed her palm over his and whispered, "They think I'm doing this alone. But I've got you, baby. You're right here, leading every step." Jamal's eyelids fluttered slightly. For the first time, Dana saw his fingers twitch again. A tear rolled down her cheek. Outside the hospital, Elise waited in Dana's car, eyes scanning articles on her phone. Suddenly, one headline jumped out. "Whistleblower files internal misconduct complaint against EAPD Lieutenant Keller." She gasped and clicked the article. It was dated 2 years ago. The complaint never made the news cycle, and the accuser was never identified. The case was dropped for lack of corroborating evidence. But here's the twist. The complaint listed 2 other names: Officer Brannigan, Officer Lutz. Elise called Dana immediately. "There's a pattern. Keller's been shielding bad officers for years. This isn't a single case. It's a system." Dana's voice came through, steady. "Then we're not just going after Brannigan anymore. We're taking down the whole machine." Meanwhile, across town, Officer Lutz sat alone in his car, parked on a dead-end street. The glow from his burner phone lit up his face as he typed another message. "There's more. Check the traffic stop logs from June 12th. He paused, hands trembling, then hit send. Back at the Carter house, Dana received the text and opened her laptop. She searched the logs and froze. On June 12th, Brannigan and Lutz had stopped a 17-year-old named Malcolm Ray, also black. No citation issued, no arrest made, no record of force used. But Malcolm's mother had filed a complaint, one that mysteriously disappeared. Dana whispered, "There are more victims." The next morning, Dana stood on the steps of the federal building, surrounded by local reporters. She read her statement clearly, confidently, into every mic. "This is not just about my son. This is about a pattern of unchecked violence. This lawsuit will expose it all, from the officers on the street to the leadership that protected them. We're not seeking vengeance. We're demanding accountability." One reporter called out, "Miss Carter, are you afraid of retaliation?" Dana didn't flinch. "I'm not afraid of any man who hides behind a badge and a lie." Then she turned and walked away, each step toward justice heavier, louder, more certain. The courtroom buzzed with hushed voices and shifting bodies. Dana Carter sat at the plaintiff's table in a dark navy suit, posture upright, eyes laser-focused on the opposing counsel. Her fingers rested lightly on a notepad, though she had no need to write. Every fact, every motion, every tactic, she already knew them cold. What she didn't know was what they'd try to hide. Across the aisle, Assistant City Attorney Michael Bryce adjusted his tie, a tight smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. He was younger than Dana, cocky, and clearly underestimated her. That would be his first mistake. The judge entered. All rose. As everyone settled back into their seats, Judge Raymond Tull leaned forward. "Counsel, we're here to determine if sufficient grounds exist for the case of Carter versus East Atlanta Police Department to proceed to trial." Dana stood slowly, the courtroom falling silent. "Your Honor," she began, her voice calm but firm, "this case isn't about bruises. It's about a broken system. My son Jamal Carter was beaten into a coma by 2 officers with a documented history of excessive force. We now have evidence those records were buried. I intend to prove the city and department leadership allowed this brutality through willful negligence and suppression." Bryce rolled his eyes, then stood for his turn. "Respectfully, Your Honor, this is a grieving mother lashing out. The officers involved responded to what they believed was a threat. A 17-year-old kid with both hands in the air," Dana snapped, her voice sharp. Judge Tull banged his gavel. "Ms. Carter, you'll have your turn to cross-examine. Mr. Bryce, keep it factual." Dana knew the prosecution would try to paint her as emotional, too close to the case. That's why she brought backup. As the court broke for recess, Dana stepped into the hallway where Elise handed her a slim folder. "You're going to want to see this." Inside was a signed statement from Malcolm Ray. The boy stopped weeks before Jamal. It detailed how Officer Brannigan had pulled him from the car, cursed at him, slammed his head against the hood, then let him go without paperwork. There were photos, too. Malcolm had never come forward, until now. Elise had tracked him down through an old thread on a community forum. The boy was scared, but his mother had convinced him. Dana closed the folder, pulse rising. "This is our second witness." That afternoon, in a small conference room, Dana sat with Malcolm and his mother, Denise. Malcolm's eyes stayed low, his voice quiet. "I didn't think anyone would believe me. I mean, who was I compared to them?" Dana leaned forward. "You're the reason this case matters. Because what happened to Jamal wasn't the beginning. It was just the first time someone was ready to fight back loud enough." Denise's hands shook. "They told me if I filed a complaint, it might make things worse, that maybe next time Malcolm wouldn't come home at all." Dana nodded. "And now you're making sure no one else has to choose between silence and survival." Back at the precinct, Lieutenant Keller slammed his office door shut. A news alert had just pinged his phone. "Second victim steps forward in EAPD brutality case." He picked up the desk phone and called Brannigan. "Get over here, now." Brannigan arrived minutes later, nervous. "I didn't think that kid would talk." "Well, he did," Keller snapped. "And now the department's bleeding. You think this lawsuit is just about Jamal. Carter's not some housewife with a GoFundMe. She's dangerous. She has connections, legal power." Brannigan scowled. "Then what do we do?" Keller's face was stone. "We find the leak. Someone inside is helping her." That night, Dana sat alone in her kitchen, reading Malcolm's statement again. Outside, rain tapped against the windows. Her phone buzzed with a restricted number. She almost didn't answer. A voice came through, low and shaken. "They're covering more than you think. Keller's involved with 2 past cases. Look up Daryl Keene and Isaiah Monroe." "Who are you?" "I used to be one of them. Not anymore." The call ended. Dana stared at the phone, then turned to her laptop and typed the names. What she found made her breath catch. Daryl Keene, arrested 2 years ago for a traffic violation, died in custody. Ruled accidental. Family received a quiet settlement. Isaiah Monroe, assaulted during booking. Complaints dismissed, also settled. Both cases involved officers Lutz and Brannigan, and both reports had Keller's name in the approval chain. The next morning, Dana walked into her office and met Elise with fresh eyes. "We're not just taking down 2 bad cops anymore," she said. "We're pulling the thread on an entire legacy of abuse. This isn't about revenge, it's about cleaning house." Elise handed her another folder. "Then you're going to want to see this." I pulled traffic cam logs from the night Jamal was beaten. One of the patrol cars didn't report their location correctly, but the camera did. She opened the folder. The footage showed Keller arriving at the scene after the incident. Not during. After, which meant he knew, and he stayed silent. Dana whispered, This was a cover-up. Back in court, as the hearing resumed, Dana stood before the judge with a new tone. Your Honor, new evidence has come to light suggesting not only misconduct but deliberate concealment by senior leadership. We're requesting full discovery on all internal complaint files associated with the East Atlanta Police Department over the last 5 years. Judge Tull narrowed his eyes. On what basis? Dana placed the photo from the traffic cam on the evidence screen. Because this man, Lieutenant Keller, was at the scene the night my son was assaulted, and not once has his name appeared in any report. The courtroom erupted. Judge Tull banged the gavel. Quiet. Then he turned to Bryce. Counselor, you didn't disclose your client's leadership was present that night. Why? Bryce hesitated. Your Honor, we were not aware. You were aware, Dana cut in. Or you chose not to be. Either way, we're not done. Judge Tull nodded slowly. Motion to proceed to full trial is granted. And just like that, the system that once tried to silence her now had to answer to her. The courtroom was packed again. This time not just with press and observers, but with people who looked like they had been waiting years, some even decades, for this exact moment. Dana sat at the plaintiff's table with a new file in front of her. Elise leaned in and whispered, Are you sure about this witness? If he flips, it could sink us. Dana nodded. He won't. He has more to lose now by staying quiet. Across the aisle, Bryce looked unsettled for the first time. His usual smirk had vanished, replaced by darting glances and clenched fists. He'd seen the list Dana submitted to the court. 10 previously undisclosed complaints, buried quietly by internal affairs. Every one of them tied back to either Brannigan, Lutz, or Keller. And now one name had returned to testify, Detective Caleb Rhodes. When Rhodes walked into the courtroom, a murmur ran through the crowd. He wore his badge clipped to his belt, but his expression carried something heavier than duty. He looked like a man coming in from the cold. Dana stood. Your Honor, the plaintiff calls Detective Caleb Rhodes to the stand. Rhodes took the oath, sat, and looked directly at Dana. Detective, can you tell the court what you saw the night Jamal Carter was assaulted? He cleared his throat. I was in the surveillance review room when the call came in. Dispatch flagged it as a standard stop. No threats, no resistance. But then we lost camera feed from Patrol Unit 31's dash cam. That's Brannigan and Lutz. Dana nodded. What did you do? I called Keller, told him something felt off. He told me to shut it down, said the footage would just stir things up. I didn't push back. I should have. The courtroom was still. Even Judge Tull leaned forward slightly. Dana stepped closer. Detective Rhodes, did you know what happened to Jamal after that footage disappeared? He nodded slowly. I didn't know the full extent, but I knew something bad happened. Keller made sure the reports were cleaned up. We were ordered not to log it as a use of a force case. And you went along with it? His jaw tightened. Yes, I did. Dana paused. Let the weight of that confession settle in. Then she continued. Why are you speaking up now? Rhodes looked at the jury. Because I have a son, and if it had been him, I'd want someone to do the right thing. I can't keep pretending. Bryce stood abruptly. Your Honor, we move to strike this testimony on the grounds that Detective Rhodes acted outside the scope of departmental protocol. Judge Tull turned to him sharply. You want to strike the testimony of your own department's officer for telling the truth? Dana didn't flinch. Let it stay on the record. That night, Dana and Elise sat in their cramped office, a whiteboard behind them now filled with names, dates, and red arrows connecting dots. Elise tapped her pen on one name circled in bold, Keller. This guy's been the puppet master. Everything runs through him. Dana nodded. And now we make sure that thread pulls him out of the shadows. They turned to the wall where Malcolm Ray's statement sat pinned next to Jamal's hospital photos. Then came Darrell Keene, Isaiah Monroe, now Detective Rhodes. Dana said, "We're building more than a case. We're building a pattern." Elise looked at her. "But to take down Keller, we need something indisputable, something even Bryce can't talk his way around." The next morning, Dana walked into a diner on the edge of town, sat at a booth and waited. A man in his 50s slid into the seat across from her, graying hair, weathered hands. His badge had long been turned in. "Name's Rick Vance," he said, "retired lieutenant. You're digging into Keller. That makes you either brave or crazy." "Maybe both," Dana said. "I need to know if you ever saw him cover anything up." Vance sipped his coffee. "I saw him turn good men into cowards, saw him rewrite paperwork, pressure internal affairs. But there's one file that never got sealed, the Casey Lang file. Kid died in holding. I filed a report. It disappeared." Dana leaned in. "You have a copy?" He slid her a flash drive. "Copy, photos. Audio clip. You didn't get it from me." 2 days later, Dana played the audio in front of Judge Tull. "Lang's not gonna make it through the night. Just say he slipped in the shower. We'll clean it up before IA gets wind of it." Judge Tull froze. "Who said that?" Dana pressed pause. "Lieutenant Thomas Keller." A visible ripple ran through the room. Bryce paled. Dana turned to the jury. "Ladies and gentlemen, this wasn't misconduct. This was a criminal enterprise hiding behind badges." Bryce tried to stand, but Judge Tull held up a hand. "We're moving to criminal inquiry." And just like that, the case shifted. No longer a civil trial. Now it was a federal investigation. Outside the courthouse, reporters crowded Dana as she emerged. "Ms. Carter, did you know you'd uncover all this?" Dana looked directly at the cameras. "I started this fight for my son. But this isn't just about him anymore. This is for every family that never got to speak, never got justice. That ends now." She turned and walked away. But the storm had only just begun. The sound of flashbulbs outside the courthouse had faded, but inside the tension buzzed like a live wire. Dana Carter sat at the plaintiff's table, hands clasped tightly in front of her. Elise flipped through a fresh stack of documents, her mouth tight, her fingers trembling just slightly. Today the stakes were higher. Judge Tull had ruled to admit the Lang audio file into evidence and greenlit a criminal inquiry into Lieutenant Keller and several others. And now the court had called an unexpected witness, a last-minute bombshell that neither side had prepared for. Dana turned to Elise. "They're pulling a Hail Mary," she whispered. "They're scared." Elise nodded. "So they're bringing someone who'll try to muddy the waters." Across the aisle, Bryce didn't look triumphant. He looked cornered. "Your Honor," he said, clearing his throat, "the defense calls Deputy Chief Renee Maddox." Dana's eyes narrowed. Renee walked in slowly, a woman in her early 60s, with iron-gray hair pulled into a tight bun. Her uniform was immaculate, her expression unreadable. The courtroom fell silent. As she took the stand, Dana scanned her face for any sign, any clue of what she was about to do. Bryce began. "Deputy Chief Maddox, how long have you been with the department?" 37 years, she said firmly. "And in that time, have you ever known Lieutenant Thomas Keller to abuse his authority?" Maddox hesitated. "I've known Keller to push the line. But we work in a tough city. Sometimes lines blur." Dana leaned forward. Bryce continued. "So, in your professional opinion, would you say his actions, while maybe harsh, were within operational necessity?" Maddox paused again, and then she turned her head to the jury. "No," she said. What he did was criminal. The room gasped. Bryce dropped his pen. Dana blinked. Elise looked like she'd stopped breathing. Maddox sat straighter. I spent too many years protecting the wrong people. I'm not going to die with that guilt hanging over me. Judge Tull leaned forward. Deputy Chief, do you have documentation? She pulled a folder from her uniform jacket and held it up. This is a report I filed back in 2008, flagging Keller for falsifying use-of-force incidents. It was buried, but I kept copies. I kept everything. Bryce was pale. Your Honor, I wasn't made aware of this report. Of course you weren't, Maddox said. You weren't supposed to be. Dana stood slowly. Your Honor, may I? Proceed, Judge Tull said, his voice low. Dana approached the witness box. Deputy Chief Maddox, why now? Because of that boy, Jamal Carter, because I saw his mother sit in this room day after day while the men who hurt her child acted like nothing happened. I've spent years thinking that silence kept me safe, but all it did was keep others in danger. Dana's voice cracked. Thank you. She turned to face the jury. This wasn't just one bad night. This was a system built to protect itself, no matter the cost. And today, someone from inside that system finally chose courage. Outside the courtroom, news of Maddox's testimony broke like a thunderclap. National outlets picked up the story. Dana's phone rang non-stop. Activist groups offered support. Former officers sent anonymous emails, some apologizing, others offering to testify. But not everyone was happy. That night, Elise and Dana sat reviewing files in their office when a rock shattered the front window. It landed near Dana's desk with a crude note attached. Drop the case or the next one won't miss. Elise grabbed her phone. We need to call this in. Dana took the rock, turned it in her hand. We expected this. You're not Superman, Dana. No, Dana said, but I am a mother, and I'm not stopping until my son wakes up and sees justice served. The next morning, Dana found herself summoned to an emergency hearing. The defense had filed a motion to suppress all testimonies related to Keller, citing coercion, defamation, and illegal acquisition of evidence. Judge Tull called both sides into chambers. Bryce stood, fire in his eyes. This is a witch hunt, Your Honor. My clients are being railroaded by manufactured outrage. Tull leaned forward. Mr. Bryce, your clients are being held accountable. There's a difference. Dana spoke clearly. All our evidence is legally obtained. Every witness came forward willingly, including your own deputy chief. Tull sighed. I'm denying the motion. This trial will continue, and so will the investigation. As they left the chambers, Elise whispered, We just survived their biggest counterattack. Dana nodded. Now it's our turn. Outside the courthouse, a small crowd had gathered. Not protesters, supporters. Some held signs with Jamal's name. Some carried candles. A young girl approached Dana. She couldn't have been more than 10. Is your son gonna be okay? Dana knelt beside her. I hope so. We're fighting for him, and for everyone like him. The girl smiled. My brother got stopped by police last year. He was scared. He said maybe next time they'll listen because of you. Dana blinked away tears. Tell him to keep being brave. We're making sure there won't be a next time like that. As Dana stood, Elise joined her, holding a new file. What is it? Dana asked. Elise opened it. 2 more officers. Same squad. Internal affairs never followed up. Dana looked at the file, then at the courthouse doors. Then let's give them no choice. Because now the world was watching. And Dana Carter wasn't just fighting for Jamal anymore. She was fighting for a future where no mother had to sit beside a hospital bed praying for her son to wake up. because of the people who were supposed to protect him. The courtroom was electric. The media had dubbed it the trial that changed the badge. National networks live-streamed every second, and the public gallery was full. Community leaders, families of past victims, off-duty officers, and, quietly, even federal observers. But at the center of it all sat Dana Carter, her spine straight, her face unreadable, her hand clutching a folded photograph of Jamal taken a week before the attack. He was smiling in it, healthy, whole. Now he lay in a coma, while the city debated whether that smile would ever return. "Call your next witness," Judge Tull instructed. Elise stood. The plaintiff calls Officer James Rutledge. A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. Rutledge was Keller's former partner. He had refused to speak until now. No one knew why he'd agreed, only that he'd shown up this morning unannounced, wearing civilian clothes and eyes full of regret. He took the stand, his voice low but steady. "I was in the squad car the night they stopped Jamal Carter." Donna leaned forward. Elise remained motionless, watching every twitch of Rutledge's jaw. "And what happened after you pulled him over?" Rutledge swallowed. Keller was already agitated. He'd been itching to make an example of someone all day. I told him to cool it, but when Jamal didn't respond fast enough, Keller snapped. He dragged him out of the car. He hesitated. "And then?" He didn't stop hitting him, even when Jamal was screaming for help, even when he passed out. And I froze. "Why didn't you intervene?" Elise asked gently. "Because if I did, I'd be the next one he turned on, and I was a coward." His voice cracked. "I told myself I'd report it later. I never did. I filed the report Keller wrote. I lied." A stunned silence fell across the courtroom. Elise moved closer. "Why are you coming forward now?" "Because I couldn't sleep last night. I saw the news. Deputy Chief Maddox coming clean. I saw Jamal's mom in the press conference. And I saw my own son's face. I couldn't live with it anymore." Dana's lips quivered, but she didn't cry. "And what do you think should happen now?" Elise asked. Rutledge looked straight at the jury. "Keller doesn't deserve a badge, and I don't either. But if this helps even a little, then maybe Jamal's pain won't be wasted." Judge Tull instructed the court to recess for the day. As Rutledge stepped down, he walked past Dana and stopped. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. Dana met his eyes. "Then don't disappear. Keep showing up." He nodded. Outside the courtroom, a storm was brewing. Protesters chanted Jamal's name. Civil rights attorneys demanded that the Department of Justice step in. Elise's phone buzzed nonstop. Reporters, other victims, and quietly federal prosecutors inquiring about cooperating witnesses. That night, in their temporary office, Dana and Elise sat hunched over new files. Elise pushed one forward. "This is big. Turns out the DA's office had evidence of Keller's past assaults sealed by court order. Judge Avery Moore signed it twice." Dana stared at the name. "Avery Moore? Isn't she the one Keller played golf with every Friday?" "Yup," Elise confirmed. "She's also married to one of the department's largest donors." A slow fury built in Dana's chest. "So the errot goes beyond the badge." "And into the bench," Elise said grimly. Dana stood. "Then we're changing the rules. Let's bring Moore in." "You want to subpoena a sitting judge?" "Yes. I want to make them feel what we've felt. Pressure. Accountability." The next day, Dana filed a motion for judicial misconduct. She had no illusions. It would make her a target. But the evidence was airtight. And with Rutledge's testimony corroborating her son's injuries, the court couldn't ignore it. Within hours, the motion became national news. City officials scrambled. Police union leaders panicked. Judge Moore issued a public denial and tried to recuse herself from all related cases. But Dana wasn't after avoidance. She wanted justice. Later that evening, Dana returned to the hospital, the weight of the city's unrest still clinging to her like foul. She sat beside Jamal, whose vitals remained steady, unchanged. She took his hand. "They tried everything, baby," she whispered. "But we're still here, and now they're scared." She turned as Elise walked in. "Dana, the DOJ just confirmed they're opening an investigation into systemic abuse within the department." Dana closed her eyes for a moment, then nodded. "They'll try to bury it. Maybe, but not this time, not with the whole world watching." Back at home, Dana stood before her bathroom mirror. Her face was older than she remembered, her eyes heavier. She touched the scar beneath her chin, a reminder from her own teenage run-in with the police. This time it was her son, and it was going to end with him. She grabbed her blazer, straightened her spine, and whispered to her reflection, "Tomorrow we finish what they started." Because in the courtroom of public opinion and in the halls of justice, Dana Carter wasn't just a grieving mother anymore. She was a reckoning. The final day of trial dawned beneath a gray, restless sky, as if even the weather understood the weight of what was about to unfold. Outside the courthouse, hundreds had gathered. Activists, families, students, veterans, clergy. Signs filled the air. Justice for Jamal. Accountability now, and no more badges without conscience. The crowd was peaceful but firm, determined to bear witness. Inside, the atmosphere was electric. The courtroom was packed shoulder to shoulder. Reporters sat shoulder to shoulder beside grieving mothers and off-duty cops who had come to see what justice would look like, if it still meant anything. Dana Carter entered wearing a simple black dress. She didn't need armor today. Her presence was powerful enough. Elise walked beside her, confident and sharp, carrying the closing arguments with her like loaded ammunition. On the other side sat Officer Stephen Keller, visibly thinner, his once cocky demeanor replaced with a nervous rigidity. His defense attorney leaned in, whispering furiously. He nodded, sweat already pooling at his temples. James Rutledge sat in the back row, alone. The judge gave the nod. Elise rose. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she began, her voice calm but weighted. "You've heard testimony from doctors, from fellow officers, from victims. You've seen the body cam footage. You've heard Officer Keller himself admit, under oath, that he may have gone too far. But I'm not here to talk about a moment of poor judgment." She turned, facing the jury squarely. "I'm here to ask you, how many broken bones does it take before it's not just a mistake? How many sealed records, how many falsified reports, how many mothers have to bury their sons before we stop calling this misconduct and start calling it what it is? A system designed to protect its own, not to protect us." Keller's lawyer objected to the tone. The judge allowed it to continue. "And yet," Elise said, her voice softening, "Dana Carter didn't ask for vengeance. She asked for accountability. She stood in this courtroom not because she wanted to tear the system down, but because she believed it could be better." She stepped back. "Make it better. Start here. Start now." The courtroom held its breath. After closing arguments, the jury deliberated. 2 hours in, word spread. They had a verdict. The judge called the courtroom to order. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" "We have, Your Honor." A pause. "In the case of Carter v. Keller and the Metro Police Department, we find the defendants liable for all charges, including assault with intent to cause grievous bodily harm, obstruction of justice, and civil rights violations." Gasps. A wave of relief, of justice long overdue, swept through the room. Dana didn't move. She simply closed her eyes and placed her hand over her heart. Then quietly, tears rolled down her cheeks. Keller slumped in his seat. Reporters shouted. His lawyer placed a hand on his shoulder, already talking appeal. But the damage was done. The judge's gavel echoed like a final heartbeat. "This court is adjourned." Outside, the crowd erupted in cheers as Dana stepped down the courthouse steps. A sea of microphones waited for her. She stopped only once, just enough to speak into one camera, looking directly at it. "This isn't just about my son. Jamal is the face of thousands, of every child, every man or woman who's been stopped, silenced, or stomped down because of the color of their skin. Today we didn't just win a verdict. We sent a message." Elise placed a hand gently on Dana's back. "And we're not done." In the days that followed, the fallout rippled across the country. Officer Keller was stripped of his pension and sentenced to 10 years without parole. Judge Avery Moore resigned under mounting pressure. Deputy Chief Maddox cooperated fully with the DOJ, exposing decades of internal cover-ups. And the city began forming an independent civilian review board with real authority, something long promised, never delivered. But most of all, hospitals reported a surge in visitors to comatose patients named Jamal. Letters, prayers, flowers, people who never met him showing up to honor him. 3 weeks later, at 4:47 in the morning, a nurse ran down the hallway of Mercy General, screaming. Jamal Carter opened his eyes. He couldn't speak yet. But when Dana rushed into his room and whispered his name, he blinked twice. Once for yes, once for "I'm here." It was enough. In a televised interview weeks later, Dana sat beside him in his wheelchair. "What would you like people to take away from this?" the reporter asked. Dana looked into the lens. "That justice," she said slowly, "is not something we're given. It's something we demand, and we don't stop, no matter how long it takes, until we get it." She paused. "And for anyone watching who thinks their voice doesn't matter, look at me. Look at my son, and know that yours might be the one that changes everything." She smiled finally. "To everyone who stood with us, shared our story, marched, donated, believed, thank you. Keep standing. Keep fighting. And if you believe stories like ours need to be heard, don't forget to share this video, subscribe to the channel, and help us shine a light on the truth. Because sometimes the fight for justice doesn't start in the courtroom. It starts with someone like you pressing play.